Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going way past the usual blurry photos and grainy videos.
Way past.
We're diving into something much deeper. It's the work of researcher Leonard Stringfield, who spent years investigating, well, the highest level of UFO secrecy.
Incidents that are known in the literature as retrievals of the third kind.
That's it. So our mission for this deep dive is very specific.
Right. We're sifting through the testimony Stringfield gathered over decades. We're talking about dozens of sources. Military pilots, security guards, radar guys.
Metallurgists, even.
Yeah, and we're focusing only on the claims about the military actually recovering crashed structured machines and their occupants.
And Stringfield, I mean, he didn't mince words about what was at stake here.
Not at all, yeah.
He believed that if these stories are true, they are the extraordinary and sobering proof that has just eluded everyone for generations.
It's a truth that would, if it came out, completely shake up our culture, our beliefs, the global economy. He points to a huge, long-running cover-up.
Okay, so let's start to unpack this. It's a monumental claim.
Well, we have to start where Stringfield did, which is with the initial climate. This whole story really gets going right after World War II.
With the Foo Fighters.
Exactly. But the public, and frankly most scientists, were just steeped in disbelief. The idea that we were being visited by aliens was, it was considered impossible.
And that disbelief, it kind of split the early UFO researchers into two main camps, right?
It did. On one hand, you had the paraphysical or psychical hypothesis, the idea that UFOs weren't nuts and bolts spaceships at all.
Right, more like a strange phenomenon, maybe even something from our own consciousness.
Versus the other view. The more conservative major hypothesis, which was, no, these are structured physical machines from another solar system.
But even that theory had layers.
It did. It allowed for the possibility that these beings were so advanced they might also have, powerful mental abilities, maybe even the power to manipulate human minds, which could help with the secrecy and explain some of the weirder accounts.
Okay, now, here's where we have to pump the brakes a little because there's an elephant in the room.
The credibility problem.
A huge one. Stringfield's work had this immediate hurdle. In 1950, a book by Frank Scully about a crash in Aztec, New Mexico it was blown wide open as a complete hoax.
Right. And that made any serious researcher just scoff at retrieval stories.
So he was really fighting an uphill battle.
He was, and he knew it. He knew he had to build a case with new, independent sources. And his earliest documented claim actually takes us back even further. To Roswell, 1947.
Of course.
An Air Force intelligence officer, a Major JM, confirmed finding fragments of metal and something like parchment spread out over a huge area, like a mile square.
We've all heard about the memory foil, but it's amazing how early that detail shows up in the military report.
It really is. And the Major, he told the press it was just a weather balloon to, get them off his back.
But the material itself was the real story.
Exactly. Sources said it was like tinfoil, but you couldn't bend it or break it no matter how hard you tried with your hands.
And that's the start of the chain of custody.
That's the moment. That material gets sent to Fort Worth, then it's forwarded to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. WPAFB.
And that name is going to come up a lot.
A lot. This is where the physical cover-up infrastructure really begins. And what's interesting is that Stringfield later revisited that Aztec case.
The hoaxed one.
The hoaxed one. But he had new sources, high-level sources, who said that a 1948 incident did happen there. It was tracked by 3 radar stations and resulted in, well, the retrieval of 12 bodies.
And they were described as small, 3 to 4 feet tall, with big heads.
Elongated heads, yeah. And they were also reportedly sent to WPAFB.
So Roswell sets the precedent for material, and then almost immediately we have patterns for body retrieval. You also have that 1948 crash near Laredo on the Texas-Mexico border.
A 90-foot disc, supposedly. Yeah. Crashed about 30 miles inside Mexico. U.S. troops go in, they recover it, and they find 1 dead occupant.
And the description.
About 4.5 feet tall, hairless, and hands with no thumbs.
What's so wild here is just how many reports start piling up in the early 50s, and they all seem to point to Wright-Patterson.
It's the sheer volume, you're right. If any of this is true, that base wasn't just a lab. It was the central hub for all the physical evidence. The craft, the bodies, everything was allegedly funneling there.
The reports from 1952 alone just paint this picture of intense, coordinated activity.
They really do. You have a radar specialist at Edwards Air Force Base who watches a UFO come down fast. He confirms it crashed.
And he later learns what they pulled out of it.
A 50-foot burned-out disc. And inside, 4.5-foot tall dead humanoids. And the key thing is, That craft was reportedly shipped straight to WPAFB.
And you have the other side of that journey, right? The testimony from the security guard.
Yes, the civilian guard at a receiving gate at Wright Pat in 52. He saw a lowboy tractor haul in a huge tarp-covered craft into a secure area.
He also saw the crates?
He saw the crates. He said they contained the deceased little people, and he was adamant everything delivered had to pass by me.
That is just such a powerful piece of eyewitness testimony. Then you have other reports reinforcing the technical side.
Yeah, the communications worker who saw photos of a retrieved UFO control panel. He described seeing glyphs, symbols on it.
And he overheard intelligence guys confirming they had saucers at the base.
Before a major shut them down immediately and denied everything.
The consistency of the threats to keep people quiet is also, I mean, it's pretty chilling.
It is. It shows how seriously they were taking this. The troops from that 48 Laredo crash, they were told they'd be the sorriest people around if they talked.
Which is a military way of saying you'll be shot.
It's not subtle, no.
But I think the most detailed single account of a recovery has to be the 1953 Kingman, Arizona event.
The Fritz Werner affidavit, yes.
Yeah.
This one is incredible. Werner was a specialist with the Atomic Energy Commission. He gets blindfolded, driven out to a crash site.
And what does he see?
A 30-foot oval craft. It had hit the sand hard enough to be buried about 20 inches deep, but he said it was completely undamaged.
Not even a scratch.
Not a scratch. And then he saw the occupant.
Yeah.
In a nearby tent, under guard.
What did it look like?
4 feet tall, dark brown skin, wearing a metallic suit and a kind of skull cap. And what gives his story so much weight is his personal diary.
Right.
For that day, he says he went on a special job I can't write or talk about. It's huge.
We also have the story from the radar specialist, Mr. T.
He was ordered to watch this grainy military film. It shows a disc, maybe 15 to 20 feet across, crashing in the desert. Then the scene cuts.
That cuts to the bodies.
Right. Laid out on tables in a tent. He described them as having large, mongoloid-like heads and wearing these pastel-colored suits. And as soon as the film ends, he's told point blank, forget the movie.
The consistency is just, it's hard to ignore. It really forces you to look at the biological profile they're all describing.
Exactly. Because when you pull all these sources together, from WPAFB, from medical insiders, they tell a very specific story about the occupants.
So let's break that down top to bottom. What was the consensus on the head and the face?
Okay, so size-wise, they were generally 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall. Some said 5 feet, but that was rare. The head was always described as large, totally out of proportion to the body.
And the eyes were the main feature.
The main feature. Large, sunken, sometimes slanted. People use words like oriental or mongoloid to describe them. The nose was barely there, and the mouth was just a small slit, like it wasn't for eating or talking. No earlobes, just holes.
And what about the rest of the body? The torso, the limbs?
Thin torso. The arms were very long and thin, reaching almost to their knees, and the hands were a key detail.
4 fingers, no thumb.
Universally 4 fingers, no thumb. Sometimes they were even described as being a little bit webbed. The bodies were hairless, maybe a little fuzz on the head, and the skin color. This is important. It was mostly gray, beige, or kind of pinkish gray, explicitly not green.
You know, if these biological details are even close to accurate, the implications they're staggering, especially when you get to reproduction.
This is one of the most provocative claims in the whole file.
What did the sources say?
They said there was no abdominal navel, and they couldn't find any identifiable sexual organs, which led them to speculate that these beings don't reproduce like we do.
So cloning or something else entirely?
Cloning, parthenogenesis, some other advanced biological method we just don't understand.
And all of this physical evidence, the bodies, they had to be reserved for long-term study. Where were they kept? Multiple
sources point to the same methods. Dry ice, deep freeze, or cryonic suspension under these thick glass enclosures at WPAFB. One warrant officer even saw 3 bodies in crates packed with dry ice, and he noted one looked like it might be female.
So to pull off an operation, this massive preserving alien bodies and materials for decades, it requires just this huge institutional control.
An immense cover-up infrastructure, yeah. Which leads back to something else Stringfield sources mentioned. A high-security master file at WPAFB.
And this wasn't part of Project Blue Book?
Not at all. It was completely independent, written in computer language, and supposedly totally untouchable by the Freedom of Information Act.
This is where the story connects directly to the highest levels of government. The concern wasn't just about what they had, but how they got it and what would happen if people found out.
The potential for, catastrophic public reaction.
You can see that political fear in the famous story about Senator Barry Goldwater.
He said publicly that in 1974, he tried to get access to that classified room at Wright-Patterson where the information was supposedly kept.
And he was a very senior politician.
And he was flatly denied, told to stay away.
And going back even earlier to the 50s, there's the claim about President Eisenhower.
Right. Professor Carr's informant alleged that Eisenhower secretly went to WPAFB in 1952. He was shown the retrieved craft and 12 bodies in deep freeze.
And his reaction.
He insisted, mum's the word. And that's supposedly when the CIA got heavily involved because they were terrified of cultural shock.
And this paranoia wasn't just some abstract fear. The sources claim the military wasn't just watching, they were sometimes aggressive.
Oh, yeah. Take the 1964 incident at Fort Riley, Kansas. This large, bun-shaped object is just sitting on the ground, making the air around it super hot.
And a guard saw it.
A PFC guard saw it. A major general found him and threatened him, told him his expletives would be shot off if he ever talked. That level of threat tells you everything.
And it goes beyond threats. There are claims of actual violence.
There are. One source described seeing a photograph of a dead alien that was supposedly killed in a skirmish with U.S. forces in Arizona.
Killed by them.
Apparently, the creature fought back and they used a sedative injection on it that caused its death.
And this uncertainty about alien intent, this assumption of hostility, it apparently led to bigger conflicts.
According to one intelligence source, JK, he claimed that during the Vietnam crisis, 66 to 68, there were 5 crashes in the Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky area.
And one of those retrievals went wrong.
It did. It involved an alleged shooting and alien casualties, supposedly because the military was just terrified and had no idea what the occupants' intentions were.
To wrap up the physical side of this, there's one last detail about the bodies from a 1957 crash.
From a Major General T, yes. He said 4 alien bodies from that crash were found badly burned. Their silver suits had fused to the flesh, which suggests some kind of intense internal heat inside the craft when it failed.
So when you pull it all together, decades of claims from all these different people, all pointing to Wright-Patterson in this one specific biological form, what does it all mean?
Well, Stringfield's argument was that the correlation, the sheer diversity of the sources, from guards to engineers, it massively strengthens the extraterrestrial hypothesis, even if you don't have what the government would call final proof.
Because if all these accounts are independent, but they're consistent on the technical details, the anatomy, the location,
then the cover-up infrastructure you'd need to hide all that would have to be immense and incredibly effective.
And the source material really ends on this huge government dilemma.
If you reveal the truth, that you have crashed ships and preserved bodies, you risk shaking civilization to its core. But Stringfield sources said the government was paralyzed because they still didn't know the ultimate intent of the UFOs.
Are they hostile, indifferent, benign? That uncertainty just complicates everything.
Right. And Stringfield, he concluded his work by basically pleading with President Carter to just tell the nation the truth. He believed we were ready for it. We survived the Cold War, hot wars, huge social change. We could handle it.
So we want to leave you with a final thought on all this, one that builds on the consistency of the evidence we've just gone through.
If these retrieved humanoids are physical, and they share a clear evolutionary kinship with us, a head, a torso, 2 arms, hands, a bipedal structure, but they lack the fundamental reproductive organs and navel that define Homo sapiens, what does that imply is missing from our current understanding of evolution, of life, and the very origin of complex existence in this universe?